chapter clicked in to College Volleyball Weekly on Viral Volley Media. Now here's your host, Rob on mic.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to an episode of College Volleyball Weekly and Viral Volley Podcast. And I normally don't jump into the women's side of things, but when I have some kind of connection with them otherwise, which is through the USAV NTDP program, or at the time was the U19 team, 2022, I met this setter, a couple setters from a pretty incredible team. And on screen, Izzy Starck, or when I went off the full roster, Isabella, but Izzy is just way easier to say for me right now. So, Izzy, first of all, thank you for joining me here during this Christmas and holiday season of this episode, especially with all the things that have been happening for you.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on.
Well, I love the fact that the way this national championship had panned out was, so full of storylines, excitement, phenomenal play, and there's so much talent. Even in the round of 64, it was so fun to watch, and watching you and your team battle all the way down to that championship match was a phenomenal thing. But I'm going to start off with the start of your season here for Penn State. So in the early weeks of your season, your team was immediately confronted with an early news that you probably weren't expecting to hear, and some early tribulation with your head coach, Katie Schumacher-Cawley's stage 2 cancer diagnosis. How did she reveal this news to the team, and what were your thoughts?
Yeah, so we were in a film session one day with the whole team and everything, and we went through our whole film, and she had everyone stay after, and she was, "Hey guys, I just need to tell you something," and you're sitting there and that's probably the last thing you think you're gonna hear from your coach, and she tells us that she has breast cancer and everything, and it was just kind of like a shocking wave over everyone, just because you don't really know how to respond to that type of news anytime you get it, just because it was just so unexpected, and it was just kinda navigating how we wanna respond to it and everything, and I think at first, we really didn't know how to until we kinda got in the locker room after and it settled in a little bit, and probably, like, 5 minutes passed, and we're all just sitting there all together, and it's just like, "Wow, that just happened," and figuring out how we can do our part and how we can respect how she wants us to respond to it. So, I think it was just definitely just really shocking for us to hear.
So it's after a film session, then you and the
Mhm.
team gathered afterwards on your own and probably sat in silence, probably a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah.
Now, with all the media and the storylines that were presented with the broadcasts on ESPN and ABC,
Mhm.
you came up with this saying "bigger than us." How did that come about, and how quickly thereafter did that come about after the revelation of the news?
Yeah, so actually we came up with it before we found out the news and everything. So before the season even started, we went over the goals with our team and initially the Bigger Than Us started with the alum and the history and the legacy that Penn State volleyball has. And once we figured out the news of Coach Katie and everything, it kind of fell into that side more than what we had before and kind of became more of our main type of slogan for the team. Before it was kind of like one of five that we had. So that one kind of became really the main one, and it really just signified, like, everything that we were feeling and put everything into perspective for us.
Wow, and quite a bit of history at Penn State as well.
Mhm.
I mean, it's quite the a tradition to be a part of as far as a volleyball program.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy all the women that came before us and all the hard work they put in, and just being a part of that is just really cool.
Now, before the revelation of the coach's news, what was the team's competitive outlook for 2024? Did you feel that there's a sense in the locker room that you were favorites to be one of the top finishers this season?
Initially, probably not just because, our history and everything, we do make it Sweet 16, round of 32, those type of finishes, and we had that expectation for us, but really didn't know as a team yet because we have played in the spring in Europe and everything, but we haven't played that college level and how we are gonna mesh as a team because on paper, we did look like a good team, but, as soon as you play together, it really depended on the chemistry we have together, so we
Mhm.
really didn't know what to expect.
Well, with that regular season coming upon you, it's we
Mhm.
know the competitive nature of Penn State and the schedule they have nothing but challenging teams.
Yeah.
But given those challenges that you were given with the news and everything, how was that going into those first few weeks of the season, knowing that those news? Was there any kind of intimidation or I don't know, was it just hard to get on the court?
I mean, I don't think it was more hard to get on the court because it was kind of turned into we want to do it for her. And it was really, we just want to play for her and we don't want to change our game of how we play before, but it is kind of gives us that extra drive that we want to prove to her that we're here and supporting her in our way. And since she shows up every day, we're going to show up every day for her too.
Yeah. Wow, great stuff. Well, with the way your team had performed in the regular season, and let's be real, you only went to five setters two times, I believe. I
Yes.
remember off the top of my head, and you only lost twice. And I know you'd never want to lose, but I mean, and you look at the losses there too to Wisconsin and Pitt. I mean, there they were in the Elite Eight, and you had to be feeling pretty good at the conclusion of the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, the losses that we had, they were to really good teams, but also the losses, they were both sweeps. And we got to reflect on that wasn't our best volleyball, and we could have put up a bigger front for ourselves and everything. But I think it was needed, just giving learning perspectives of how we need to respond and how we can respond in that third set, which I think did benefit us later in the season and postseason.
And then from that regular season, I mean, let's look at what you accomplished. There was so much. I mean, I'm not even going to touch on the region awards because AVCA All America recognition. You had Big Ten Freshman of the Year, Big West Setter of the Year, uh, a bunch of stuff. Did you expect to get those kinds of uh, awards for your first year in probably one of the top conferences in the nation?
I mean, honestly, not really, just because you're so wrapped up in playing and just performing for your team yourself and of all the other factors that we're playing for and showing up to practice with school and scheduling and all that type of stuff, navigating just such a new environment. It really just didn't like cross my mind of this is what I want to do. And, as the season goes on, you get those weekly awards and it's kind of nice that like you're starting to get better as you go and you can see your game elevating and everything. But, it's just something that I really didn't expect that I'd be getting all these awards and everything in reflection to how my team's doing too.
Right, right. And I think we joked before coming on. As I was doing my research, all Big Ten awards were first team, Setter of the Year, Freshman of the Year. Then AVCA was Freshman of the Year, second team All American. And then just on Christmas Day, we find out that you're the volleyballmag.com Freshman of the Year, as well as a first team All American. So they continue coming. I figure you still got a few more days left here in 2024. Let's see what else pops up, right?
Yeah.
But it's just a testament of the play that you had because I know, and I throw this in as a personal experience,
Mhm.
watching you in 2022 in that U19 team in Tulsa, Oklahoma, competing against the Pan American teams.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, it was a very talented squad, and
Yeah.
I think you didn't even see him most of the time on the court, but
No.
but I did get to see all the players. I mean, when your fourth player on the bench as an outside hitter is Kari Spears,
Yeah.
who was the player of the year
Yeah.
in high school this year. You
Yeah.
know, you got Julia Bliashov, you had Harper Murray, and of course Tori Stafford playing the outside, and you had Bergen Riley in that roster as well as
Mhm.
the. And that's watching both of you play. I mean, there's just amazing talent at the
Mhm.
junior club level in the U.S. and um, obviously you were a part of that. That team that was dominating down there in Tulsa.
Mhm.
Now, what was it like competing with them and then in most cases against them as you went through this tournament?
Yeah, I mean, it's just so cool when I was such a young age. I was only 16 at the time, so being able to learn from people that are just only a year older than me, but it just shows how much experience you can gain from just being in the game a year longer than others and everything. But it's really cool, like seeing them develop as players and then being able to compete against them in the Final Four on such a big stage is just so cool because you both have developed so much as players and it's so competitive. But you started off together, and it's kind of cool that when you're competing and everything, you get to this level and you get to compete against them.
Yeah, and that was a very talented group, which, I mean, let's be frank, you kind of dominated down there in Tulsa that year.
Yeah.
I felt bad for some of the teams that had to defend against, or actually even in the middle, because Andy Jackson was on that roster as well. And
Yeah.
one of your teammates, I believe, was on there as well.
Yeah.
So, Now, one of the other pieces that I caught, and obviously that some have touched on, was having your sister on the team.
Mhm.
She's a senior, and just like reflective of your high school, you finish your her or she finishes her career with a championship, and I believe she's gonna be graduating this year. She'll be finishing with a championship again. But how has it been having your sister, and what kind of impact has she had on you finding
Mhm.
your way in year one of your collegiate volleyball career?
Yeah, I think she just gave me that comfortability all the time on and off the court and everything, and just helping me navigate through this whole new experience and everything. And I think that's a lot of people struggle with when they first go to college is they don't know how to adapt themselves, and being comfortable with the team is just so huge with the chemistry piece of going on the court all the time. So I think she really helped me, let me open up as a person to everyone. So it kind of sped up the whole process of being connected to one another and everything, and just really up the level of play by having that emotional connection with each other.
Yeah, that emotional connection show, the interview by Michaela Chester at the end of the
Yeah.
championship match, but it was such a sweet moment because of the Instagram post after the
Uh-huh.
interview. Like you're barely containing yourself, but just showed the range of emotion and love you had for your sister and the
Yeah.
experience you've had with her. How about like when you there's the video of you cutting the net with your sister and you shared
Mhm.
that special moment, hugging each other. What was said in that moment?
I think it was the first thing she said to me is like, "We actually did it," and it was like that honestly made me break down again when she said that, just because it's like, you just think about all the history you have together and how much you've been through over all the years together, and it's like, all these moments lead up to this one moment that we wanted to share at the end of us playing with each other, and it's like, we were actually in that moment, which was just such a full circle moment for us.
Yeah, it's so cool. But
Yeah.
there's like, no, it's a very rare incident where you get to go through this with your sister. And,
Mhm.
especially with all the news that had come about with the announcement of the coach. And did she help
Mhm.
guide you through that process? Obviously, she's 4 years older, so she's has more life experience. I'm not saying she's older, but,
Yeah.
um, but it looks like you have more, like you're truly best friends on top of being
Mhm.
sisters, but guiding you through that process and through those times. What part did she play in guiding you emotionally and mentally
Mhm.
and encouraging you?
Yeah, I think just upping my mental and emotional maturity. It's, like I'm 18 years old playing with a bunch of older girls dealing with really real life things that people usually don't have to deal with. So having her being able to guide me through it of, yes, I'm gonna feel some way, but what's a better way to go about it instead of what's right and wrong, of kind of leading me what's a better way to get through it all, which I think just really helped putting things in perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this as we were bouncing back and forth here to championships of the regular season.
Mhm.
But, obviously being the setter on the court, you're the
Mhm.
quarterback, so to speak. But in essence, you are part of the leadership on the team. I'm a former
Mhm.
setter myself. So I'm like,
Yeah.
at what point did you realize that something special was happening this season?
I think I go back to the Ohio State game when we went 5 with them and everything, and it was, I really think, a really emotional roller coaster with all of us, because we really haven't been pushed like that, in a way of we have to come back from a deficit and we have to find in ourselves of coming back in a 5th set and really kind of pushing us that way. We did against UCLA, we went 5 with them, but it really wasn't the way we got pushed there, of how I had to step up on the court, and usually I'm leaning on other people and the older girls, and when they're not having their most elite performance and they're kind of leaning on me, I wasn't used to that, but I think that kind of just put me on the spot and made me up my game and up my maturity even more of, in the moment it kind of let me get to that point, and I think it just really benefited us the rest of going to the end.
Well, it definitely showed. At one point, we mentioned earlier, you only went five twice, and that was against
Yeah.
Ohio State and UCLA. The only two losses were against Pitt and Wisconsin. But there was something really special going on, even from an individual standpoint, because you finished the season 12th in the nation in assists per set at
Mhm.
10.99, and then 12th in the nation as a team with hitting efficiency, which if you've seen how physical some of those teams are, that's pretty
Yeah.
remarkable.
Yeah.
And then you throw in, of course, the volley nerd in me looks at the stats
Mhm.
across all the different teams. How do teams get it done? And because it's such a team effort, there weren't a lot of individual statistics for Penn State players in those
Mhm.
categories, with the exception of obviously you being the setter.
Mhm.
So, I'm like, okay, how did they get it done? It was offensively. You're mixing it up so much and
Mhm.
throwing defenses or keeping them off balance enough where your offense was so effective, which you're a freshman. This is the first time you run the court.
Yeah.
Now, who do you find like well, this is going to be one of those questions that's off the hip, but
Mhm.
um, where do you find your inspiration, like as far as learning about becoming a top level setter in the game?
Yeah, I think just really trusting my gut and what Coach Katie always strive and always talked to me about was letting me be me and not trying to mold me into what they think a great setter is. And I think everyone has such different abilities and techniques of it's so personalized of she really let me be myself and work through those humps and work through those different things and challenges. And I think being able to learn through those things right away and not taking me out or of like practice and drills and that type of thing, but just letting me work through them and figure it out. It like once it translated to a game, it was more automatic and more of I knew how to mix around the offense. I knew I can't set every single ball to the outside or they're gonna have a double block. And when you have a double block against a Wisconsin team, you're not gonna get past it really. So I think just
Mhm.
being able to work through those tougher times.
Well, I was going to ask you this as well, but
Mhm.
do you follow No Easy Buckets
Yes,
on
I do.
Instagram? Well,
Yeah.
you were one of the queens of the week, and the
Uh-huh.
highlight reels that they provided for you, which definitely is apropos that you were the number one, but your one hand dishes, back set, front set were amazing. I mean, so acrobatic, and
Yeah.
it definitely got my attention and obviously got the No Easy Buckets people's attention. But
Uh-huh.
is there a particular setter or group of setters that you looked up to or modeled your game after or really inspired you to play?
I mean, I really always watched Alicia Glass. She was the setter at Penn State and everything. I think she's just such a physical setter, and she always uses her hands on everything. And bump setting really isn't a common thing for her. So I think it was just really cool. And then also, since my dad played college volleyball, I did watch the men's side a little bit too. So watching the men's side and seeing how physical and just crafty they are and doing weird things that somehow work of just trusting your athletic ability and just kind of doing them kind of translating to that. And the one-handed back set, I don't think I've ever done like that in a game before, so I don't know where it came from, and I don't really ever do that in practice. So it's just kinda like sometimes your athletic ability and your body just takes over because you just trust yourself just to do those weird things. Because I think it's just sometimes you just have to be physical and just throw the ball around.
Well, that was more of a line drivey pass, and you were able to redirect it on that backside and made quite the highlight reel, I'll have to say.
Yeah.
Now, is your dad at Ball State, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, he was a right side at Ball State.
Oh, so he didn't have the hands, but he had the big shoulder, apparently.
Yes, exactly.
Well, obviously I do the College Volleyball Weekly Men's Top 20, and we'll be opening up. Got to get that plug in there here in the next few weeks. But now, Izzy, let's talk about the NCAA tournament now. We've talked about
Mhm.
the regular season stuff and some of your personal accomplishments as you went through, but you went into the NCAA tournament, garnered convincing wins in the first round against Delaware State and North Carolina, and then Marquette 3-1. Those opening three matches, which looking back, I mean, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Level play you're having to play within a
Uh-huh.
short turnaround time. But what were your thoughts on those particular battles?
Yeah, I think they're just all such different teams, and with the such fast turnarounds between the round of 64 and the round of 32, just turning the scout around and trying to figure out how we can defend each one differently. But I think just learning from the one before, like I think we learned so much from that Delaware State match to the North Carolina match of how we need to improve our game, which gave us a step up for the next games, which was helpful being able to reflect back, but not, focusing on all the bad, but focusing on what we can change in such a short amount of time.
Now, because of that time between matches, how did you spend those days? Were they mainly in video sessions, coaching sessions, or were you guys off just to refresh and renew yourselves for the next match?
I think the between the 2 matches, it was more of like a serve and pass and a couple of film sessions, like, I would go into the coach's office with just me and do different video, like, specializing, like, blocking movement, what the other blocker is doing, what the defense is doing, and then we do full team, probably, like, 3 different video sessions, but then we really only had, like, 1 serve and pass because they don't want us to overdo it because, we have another
Yeah.
game. the next day and everything, but just to define like those passing and the serving, the little things that we can clean up before the next game.
Right. Well, the next two matches were the grinder matches of the tournament, which had to be the nail biters, and I'm sure your parents probably aged about 10 years because of them. But moved on to the next weekend, um, head to the championship match and all that. You faced off against Creighton, a
Mhm.
5-set thriller. Talk about that match.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a roller coaster between we beat them 25-15 the first set, then lost 25-16 the next set. So, it's like up and down on both sides. And it was really a learning experience of how we can, we're at home, how we can feel comfortable at home, and how we can not be so tight and think about, well, this is to get to a Final Four, but this is just another match in rec hall. And I think in that fifth set, we kind of calmed down a little bit, which helped us get to the end of, we can't put all that pressure on ourselves that this is how we get to a Final Four, but how do we win this match? How we win 1 point at a time?
Right. And again, only 2 times in the season, regular season, you went 5 sets, whereas you can look at other team schedules in the season. I think everyone had to go at least 10 5-setters. So a lot of experience there. Well,
Uh-huh.
you jump into that 5-setter and go into another 5-setter against Nebraska, and it was a slugfest.
Yeah.
Your team was down 0-2. What
Mhm.
happened in that 2-3 intermission? What got you guys going?
Yeah, I think it was just try to forget about the first 2 sets and really emphasize the game's not over because we have been swept 2 times before by top 8 teams in the country. So, we're trying to reflect back of how we can change of what we did before that wasn't successful for us. And I think what our big thing was is take a deep breath and just really trust in each other because earlier in the season when we lost to those teams, we didn't have that trust and we didn't have the I got you kind of mindset. And in
Mhm.
that game against Nebraska, there was just so much trust with one another that we really did have each other's back, which I think helped us a lot.
Well, it's crazy that you share that because you had a pretty significant lead in that third set,
Mhm.
and Nebraska made a run towards the end.
Yeah.
And it came down to, and we actually joked about this on direct message, but if there was a crucial play, it was at 23 22,
Mhm.
and a hut ball goes out to Harper Murray at the left pin. Both your blockers slide inside, leaving the line open. And I remember seeing Harper hit that same ball
Mhm.
in Omaha, and she just demolished it and the defender down the line. You were the defender down the line, and you were able to get your hands up and get a really good controlled dig,
Mhm.
which led into a transition point at the left side for Penn State, which made the score 24-22. But I'd
Mhm.
rather have you describe what you're seeing on the court because Harper hits one of the hardest balls in the
Yeah.
NCAA.
No, easily. And, if I didn't get my hands up, it would have ended differently, that's for sure. But usually we play rotation defense and usually go up and play off the block and tip and everything. But as soon as I saw the block step inside, the set was inside, I knew that watching film, she does go up, turn body, go line. That's her power shot. So I saw that, then I took a step back enough where she did hit the ball, it was where my hands are up instead of where my platform is. So I think just that read of trusting myself of where you see and it's just that automatic response of what I've seen from watching film of taking the step back and taking it with my hands.
Well, you were fired up after that play, and I believe even your Libro ran over to you and said something. I obviously, it's muted on the
Yeah.
broadcast, but I mean, that was such a surge at the perfect time. But that dig made at 24, or the transition point made it 24, or set point 22, which obviously turned the match in the reverse
Mhm.
sweep. But as you're going through the rest of that match, could you feel that momentum shifting your way, or was it still more of a slugfest back and forth in at least from a player perspective?
Yeah, I think it was the momentum really carried us until the middle of that 4th set, and then they went on a run again, and I think it was 22-16 we were down, and you could really feel the pressure, and I remember I'm going back to serve, it's 17-22, and all I have in my mind is just get the serve in, and there wasn't really that emotion of stress, and, like, you would think the whole weight of the world feels like it's on you like it did the rest of the match, but it was mostly just, like, focus 1 point at a time, like, the game's not over, and I think that's where that emotional maturity that came in that if I did that earlier in the season, I don't think it would have
Mhm.
ended the same way, but since I kinda had that trust in myself, it did help us get to that however it ended, 28-26 type of end, which I don't know how we came back from that type of deficit, but it worked.
Well, that's just volleyball too. You really have to
Yeah.
grind out every point. That
Mhm.
point per point mentality plays such a big part.
Mhm.
Now, obviously, you get that win, advance to the championship match against Louisville.
Mhm.
When that final ball dropped in that Nebraska match, and at what point did you realize, my goodness, we're playing for a national championship?
I think as soon as I saw when Cam hit the ball and the block went out, I'd, like, dropped to my knees and I just stayed there like this just because it was like, "Oh my gosh, it actually happened." It kinda just all hit you, you're thinking about the match so much, you just forget about what's the next step and what the next match is, and as soon as
Mhm.
it's over, it just hits you like, we're actually playing for a national championship, and people are saying over and over again, like, "You're playing for that," it's, like, still hitting you over and over again that that's what you're playing for.
Yeah. Well, that leads us to the championship match, and it's going to be a hometown favorite and an emotional favorite at that because of Louisville hosting. You end up playing Louisville in their venue, and Anna DeBeer, another phenomenal player who, uh, well, we'll talk about later, but was the town loved her, and the thing is, the team was riding high.
Yeah.
Um, how like what concerns did Penn State have going into that match, or what did you feel like you had to prepare? Uh, I guess prepare even more for against Louisville.
Yeah, I think going into a national championship, there's also like, you have that pressure of what you're playing for, but they have that home court advantage. They have the fans, they have the support, the emotional support of how much the city wants them to win. And it's just, you can kind of feel all that. You're getting off the bus and you see all this red around the arena when you're walking through. And it's just like kind of that getting ready for may not be all 21,000 fans cheering for you, but there is that little bit of Penn State that you're trying just to feed off that and not really think about all the other fans that are cheering for the other side.
Well, I think one of the things that I saw, one of the Instagram posts, and I know I'm kind of jumping around here, was that put out by the Big Ten, saying that you're only the second freshman in the last 30 seasons to lead and assist the entire season, and the only freshman in the Big Ten to do so. And those are some pretty remarkable accomplishments.
Yeah.
But I'll have to say, the picture of you that they posted made you look like you are a rock star. Headphones on, glasses on, strut in full pace. But I mean, you're going off, and you can see the crowd. I bring that picture up because you can see the crowd,
Yeah.
the welcome alley into the venue. What an atmosphere to be playing in.
Yeah. No, yeah, I remember driving up on the bus and you just see all those people and I'm like, you've never been in that situation where you get to walk through these people and it's like they're here to watch you and it's like kind of like a wow moment for yourself because it's like you made it to this level and you made it to this stage that they're putting you on and it's just a really cool thing.
Well, Penn State emerges victorious 3-1 in that matchup. And uh, you got to talk about Jess Music.
Yeah. I mean, she is just an insane player that hits, especially that 4-to-4 shot she has. I don't even know how she hits that sharp of a ball and everything, and what she works with the sets sometimes. It's just incredible. Her all-around play between defense and offense, it's just so incredible being able to play with a player like that and being able to lean on someone like that.
It's funny because people like some of the articles are saying you have to get rid of the term undersized player. But she was not undersized. She was a baller.
Yeah, no, yeah. Especially with her vertical, she gets up and she can hit the ball pretty hard.
Well, I know even in the Nebraska match, it just was difficult to stop her. She
No,
was
yeah.
finding ways around, through the seam, under the seam, off the top. I mean, she had
Yeah.
it all.
Yeah, every which direction she was able to hit the ball, which just made it so hard for the other team to defend because you just don't know where to defend with that.
And then you had Cameron Hanna heating up with 19 kills as well, giving you
Yeah.
another option.
I mean, it's hard to not have a great offense with that and not get my assists without having these hitters that are putting up these numbers in matches in the tournament against these top teams. So it's just so cool to see how much their game elevates when the competition elevates even more, which is just really cool to be able, I have those really good hitters, but then also like Caroline has a season high of I think 20 kills against Nebraska. Plus we have hitters hitting over 15 kills, over 20 kills. It's like there's just so much spread, but it's just such a high kill amount. It's crazy to see.
Yeah. And then, of course, the amount of assists that you were garnering because of your very reliable attackers.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you were making some really good decisions as far as where to get the ball, creating one-on-one situations.
Yeah, I mean, it's just trying to not repeat it. I think what I was really trying to do, it's like you see these hot hitters and you have my two outsides, but sometimes, even though they're in that hot hand, but they're not going to be in a hot hand when they have a fully closed block all the time. So you can't really overfeed them. So it's trying to like sprinkle in other things to still give them that success consistently over the whole match.
You guided your team to let's see if I have it here, 277 hitting efficiency with 55 assists, block assists, and ace and 13 digs. So you got the setter double-double. While Jess, 29 kills, scorching 315. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with a good hitting percentage, you're looking on the women's side just north of 250. She had 315 against a very physical team.
Hmm.
While chipping in a block, solo block, 4 block assists, and 14 digs. So double-double for Jess as well. So the team was dialed in the national championship match. Final ball drops. What are the first thoughts that go through your head?
I think I had to rewatch the last play because I think I blacked out that whole last point and everything. Next thing you know, Jill's on top of me screaming, and I'm like on the ground in the huddle and everything. Everyone's on top of each other. And then you get up and you just like you see the trophy, and it's like you've never been that close to a national championship trophy like that before. And it's like it's actually yours and it's something you've earned and you're part of history. And it's just like all these different emotions are hitting you at once of shock, excitement, sadness, like everything possible hitting you at once.
Oh, I could only imagine. Um, and with that win and the entire NCAA experience, so much history was made. And I will miss some, and I actually got some from one of them. I'll give him credit. I'll say when I get to it, but the viewership for both the semis and the finals were all at record highs. The first NCAA final to feature two women's head coaches in the national championship match. Obviously, the first D1 woman head coach to win a national title. It is the first national championship for Penn State women's volleyball since 2010. And this is from Coach Mark Pavlik. He wants the credit for this. He's like, no one is saying anything that it's the first female to win a national championship as a player and a coach.
Mhm.
Um, what is it like to be part of so much history as a freshman?
Yeah, I mean, it's just unreal because you don't really think about it when you're playing of how much history that you can make and you're a part of, and people are going to be talking about this for a long time to come. And the fact that I was a part of it and I was a impactful part of it is crazy to see how much I have progressed over all these years. And thinking back to when I was younger, I didn't think I would be in this position of with all this history that I am a part of now, which is just so cool. And it's so exciting that it's with this group and with this coach and everything.
Well, I've got to ask this reflective question, but how old were you when you started playing volleyball? And at what point did it bite you that you wanted to do this?
Yeah, I think I started really touching the volleyball when I was about 6. I wasn't on a club team or anything. It was just more messing around. And then I got on my first club team when I was 8 years old. And I think by the time I was 10, it's something that I kind of wanted. I want to play college in, which seems like a young age and everything. But having both my parents play college volleyball, my older sister starting recruiting processes, it's kind of you kind of get thrown into it and you see what all there is in the future and everything. And it's just exciting to see that I was thinking about it for probably 8 years and I'm at it now.
Wow, 8 years and you already got some hardware, a lot of hardware just in
Yeah.
your first year collegiate ball. Now, what's it like knowing that your team made and delivered a phenomenal case to be the best team in the land?
I mean, it's just crazy to think that this is a team to do it because there was just so much unknown going into the season, and it's hard to see how good you're going to be before season because you think you were all just such great players, but you don't know how you're going to mesh with the chemistry and everything. And the fact it's just such a sisterhood between all of us, and that's I hope people see when they see us on the court together of how close we really are and how much trust we have with one another. It's just so cool to see that this is the group to do it.
Wow. And now I know there's only been a short time period since that championship match, but um, from the first serve until hosting the NCAA championship trophy here in 2024, what do you feel you have learned or discovered about this Penn State team?
I think just like the mental drive that we all have, and it's really true about the Penn State legacy of how competitive we really are. And, like if you come into the program, you may not be that competitive person, but it's weird. It just kind of molds you into that type of competitive person and that drive you have and the emotion you have for one another. It's just really cool to see how you get involved in it just so automatically. And it's just something that you really embrace.
And then, of course, I've got to direct that question to you personally. What do you feel that you've learned and discovered after this 2024 season?
Yeah, I think it's crazy how much a game, like your game can change over such a short period of time, but also such a long period of time. Like it was 36 matches that we played, which is a lot of matches. And going back to my first match against Tennessee compared to my last match against Louisville, it was crazy how much my game has changed and how much maturity I have now and just see on all different types of levels and spectrums of how much I have gained experience emotionally, physically, and all that type of things.
And of course, with the time off now, what's on the docket for Izzy Starck of Penn State?
Definitely a nice long break of not touching a volleyball probably for another week or two and spending a lot of time at the beach and with my family, going down to my grandparents' condo and just taking some really nice rest of no school, no volleyball, and just a lot of boredom. That's what I want right now, a lot of time to say I don't have anything to do.
If there's one thing that I get from when I met you in person, it just seems like you're a very outgoing personality. But did you get to like engage with a lot of the crowd at Louisville during the national championship, and how is it like being able to like be potentially a role model for some of these kids now?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta really like connect with a lot of them just throughout the season, but especially in Louisville and everything, going in the stands and talking to all the little girls and everything. And it's crazy that I'm one of the people that I used to look up to, and it's like I'm just a role model to all these young girls, and it's just so cool to see that how I looked up to these girls that I can form myself into what I know how they want and how to give them hope and all these craziness and emotions that comes with it. It's cool to see that I know how it was growing up and I can help them as they grow up and go through it.
Excellent. Well, Izzy Stark of Penn State, I appreciate your time here and amazing season, amazing individual accomplishments and team accomplishments, and uh, a well-earned national championship for Penn State.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to College Volleyball Weekly. Be sure to follow Rob Aspero at the Rob on the Mic on Instagram and at Rob on the Mic on Twitter.